When I checked myself into rehab, this is how I got there. I stood outside a donut shop on Gessner and Beechnut. Why are you laughing already?
I know you, man.
But back then they called it panhandle. And I stood outside the donut shop. Man, hey, I'm trying to go to the rehab. You know what I'm saying? And can I borrow $1? Because that was all it took to get on the bus, like 75 cents. And I caught the bus to the rehab. You know what I'm saying? And so what I did so that I wouldn't come back was I've always been like charismatic. People always liked me. So I went around on Beechnut. It was a place called the Trails and the Roads on Beechnut and Corporate. So I went around and got all the drug dealers dope. At that time, they put it in your hand, you sell it, they go to the club, they young, and then when they come back, you give them their money, they give you whatever. And I smoked, boy, I smoked like a broke stove. I was smoking. You know what I'm saying? Boy, I had me a good old time. And then I got on the bus and I went down to the gun. But do you know why I did that? So I couldn't come back. Because they was going to kill me if they found me. So I couldn't come back. I made it. I said I'm a smoker just so I couldn't come back.
Man.
So I went to the first time I went to ACPC the first day, and they didn't have a bed. So I had to sneak back, went to the neighborhood. It was late. I creeped back in there just to give me a nice rest. Then I went back. I got on the bus, smelling like 3 rodeo bulls, but the whole bus was on one side. I had the whole side to myself. I was stinking. So then I got to and they said, man, we don't have no more beds. I said, okay, I'm gonna come back. And so I don't know if about McGregor Park, but ACPC is on this side and the bus stop was on this side. I looked up and I seen this lady doing like this. Ma'am.
She telling you to come back.
She said, we got a bed. And I got in the treatment center.
Okay, y'all. Man, I'm excited about today's show. I got my sister with me, Daphne Moore.
Yeah.
Yes.
AKA Demo.
Demo. Okay, Demo. With That's That Drink. But we'll talk about that later. But I don't know if you guys recall episode 5. I talked about the tuna fish blessing. This is the person that I was speaking about who had a Lincoln Navigator that was on E. We went from West Bedford and Fondren all the way to TSU to get there, and they tell me I don't have a refund check. And we had to drive all the way back from TSU to West Bedford and Fondren to be grateful to eat a tuna fish sandwich.
What's going on, Fran?
Yes, and that was 21 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
21 years ago.
Yes. 21 years of friendship, 21 years of ride and die.
Yes.
Man, we been in it. We've been in the paint.
Yeah.
We've been in the paint.
And one thing I'm gonna say about, our friendship, sisterhood, is that, you always been close to God, and no matter what you did, you always went to church, you always read the Bible, and what I would say to that, in my life, I've met a lot of Christians. I mean, I've been to a lot of churches, but I ain't met that many Christians. You know what I'm saying? I met a lot of leaders of God, but I ain't met a lot of followers. You see, and there's a difference,
Yes, it is.
because regardless of what they said about you and our relationship, regardless of anything, you didn't see me, you didn't see Demo, you just seen a person with a good spirit.
Yeah.
And to me, when you follow God, when you truly following God, you look at the spirit. And, you stuck up for me when people thought we was, in a relationship, or, it didn't matter, and you stood tall on what you believed. And that carried us, to 21 years.
21 years
21
of
years of friendship.
And I'm grateful to God. And it's crazy because we done had to stand the test of time, right?
Right.
Yeah, I ended a relationship because of my friendship with you.
Right.
Yeah, because the man, he said I could not be friends with a gay woman. And so hey,
Right.
it is what it is, right?
Right.
And one thing about God is love, right? So if you can't love somebody, how do you represent God?
Correct.
But we didn't come to talk about that, but I just had to give you a background about that so you can know this is the person that's been rocking with me for a long time. And I'm grateful, and I just want to say thank you.
And I thank you too as well.
Yeah, and
for accepting me.
Yeah.
For seeing me beyond seeing the spirit in me, and seeing me beyond the physical, and seeing me in the true light of who I am, and not in the worldly light. Appreciate you.
Yes. Okay, so let's get into it, man. So Today I want to title this episode Still on the Corner. I know somebody might hear this and say, what? But it'll all make sense once we go down a journey of Demo.
Right.
Yes. So give us a little background about Demo.
Well, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. We moved to Houston, probably when I was in like 78. I'm just going to tell my age in 78. And so me and Fran, we have a very big age gap. And the thing about, our friendship is, I have to say this, the thing about our friendship is that even though we didn't hang out and we didn't go to the same places because of the age gap, that's why I'm saying that, it's because we built the foundation through that tuna fish sandwich. When you meet somebody and they both at their lowest points, then that's a perfect time to build a true foundation, because she didn't want nothing from me, I didn't want nothing from her. Our common bond is we didn't have the money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But we had a lot of love.
Amen.
And so when you meet good people, you build that foundation. So, no matter where Fran went, what coach she was on, if I called, sometimes I wouldn't call her for a whole year, Fran, hey, I'm stuck, and Fran like, okay, it wasn't no questions asked. And that's what made the friendship last so long, because we had unconditional love. And so many times, we're friends with people for so long. And then what happens is we start putting, the more we find out about them, the more we start to put conditions on their friendship. And that's what happens to the friendship. Right. It starts to dissipate.
Yeah. Yeah, Lord, I know that firsthand. I know that firsthand. Mm-hmm. So Demo, you born in St. Louis, you moved to Houston around what age?
In the 6th grade, like maybe 12.
Okay, so you've been here for a long time.
I've been here for a very long time.
So navigating the Houston streets, I know you as Demo. I'm sure people know you for a lot of other things. Actually, she is a rapper as well. She got some really good songs, and one of her songs, she put me in there. She said, my girlfriend is a beast with that cheese. Boy, I used to repeat that all the time. So navigating this entrepreneur space, what have you learned about yourself? So,
this is what I learned about entrepreneurship, the true entrepreneurship. My product is a good product. I've been in stores. I was in stores. I was in Fuel Depot for 2 years and 13 stores. And I got in there the space by myself. The product was selling. The problem is that it was the capital. I couldn't get enough capital together to sustain, and I was next to Dr. Pepper and all of them, and they bought it, so that wasn't the issue. But not even just the capital was the problem. When you broken, you're gonna stay broke. Okay. And so, that's what I learned from that. My relationship with Fuel Depot, he is a great guy. He tried to help me navigate through, being into that space. Mm-hmm. But, what I've learned about entrepreneurship is that, sometimes it's not about the product, it's the person who creates it. And it's not even about the capital. It's about, you have to go back, and so I'm just kind of go back through my travels, What happened to me was, I just wasn't in a good space. When you got all of these people around you and all this negative energy around you, and I can't blame anybody. And this is what you don't do once you begin to heal, is you don't blame people, because at the end of the day, I wasn't a victim, I was a volunteer, because I put myself in that space.
That's good.
I put myself in that space. I put myself, because of the choices that I made, because I made them out of brokenness. I made them out of unhealed trauma. You know what I'm saying? You can't create, you can't move, you can't forge forward, and I'm not saying all the time, but in my situation, because all I can share is my experience, strength, and hope. I can't share nobody else's story. Right? This is what happened to me,
Okay, so we're gonna go back a little bit, because you did get into the Fuel Depot, which is around the city all everywhere. Over, right? Mm-hmm. So I know you from Ghetto Ice,
right?
On Fondren in West Belford,
right?
That's where I first met you.
Right.
So when you came up with Ghetto Ice, what inspiration you had in that time to make you move forward with Ghetto Ice?
So I always had the drive, and I've always had the talent, but I didn't have no discipline. And when I say discipline, I wasn't at the clubs, I wasn't partying, I wasn't doing none of that, but I'm talking about the discipline within. I just didn't have it. And talent without discipline is a dream deferred. That's why I see a lot of talented people, and you be like, man, you're so talented. You know, she's so talented. Because what I've learned through my own experience is that I just didn't have the discipline to be alone. You know, I thought I always needed somebody, and that just goes back to the trauma of childhood.
Yeah.
You know, because I was a lonely, you know, like a lonely child. You know, but I've always been talented. School, play. I've always had talent. Talent was I never lacked that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and I never lacked courage. You know. And so I was willing to, you know, I'm a dreamer.
That's good.
I'm a dreamer.
Yeah. Never stop dreaming. Soon as you stop dreaming, your whole life will go to shambles. And like you said, you gotta have courage. You gotta have courage to get back up, even though you got knocked back down.
Right.
Even though you got knocked down.
Right.
Okay, so you started with Ghetto Ice, and then from Ghetto Ice, you went to Ghetto Geeks.
Yeah, I went to Ghetto Geeks, which is a clothing line. And I did Ghetto Geeks for a little while. And, you know, it was just, you know, clothing lines, you know, you really have to have a lot of capital. But I was leaving out of a relationship, and some of that it was in their name, even though it was mine. So I had to leave it behind because it was nothing I could do with it. But see, here's the blessing in that. One thing about God's gifts, when he gifts you with something, if you make it once, you can make it twice.
Amen.
You know, so, you know, you think you're taking something from somebody, but all you're doing, and that's when I came up with, you know, that's that drink. You know what I'm saying? So what I've realized about, you know, life is that don't fret over what's been taken or what you think has been taken. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't that I didn't lose, I gained.
Amen.
See, sometimes, you know, the devil, he play a lot of tricks. You know, he play a lot of tricks. And one of the tricks is, you know, he'll make you think you losing when you gaining. So I might have lost that, but I gained, you know, more creativeness, more determination. Because one thing I don't like is when somebody say I can't do nothing. And that goes back to childhood. You know, when I feel like somebody put me in a position where they think I can't win. You know, my thing is I'm gonna show you.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of God. And God is in everybody, you know, whether you gay, I don't care what you are, you know, an alcoholic, you know, practicing alcoholic, God lives in all of us because they said in the Bible, they say that he made us in his image. Right. So if I'm his image, then that means I possess some of the things he have, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, yeah, because God is love. So, right. I mean, he created you. I mean, like you say, everything about life is decisions, right? So that's the decision that you chose, right? But at the end of the day, I'm glad you said that. A person will look at this and say, well, God don't talk to her. Because she, you know. Because
you know, but what they got to do with the price of tea in China? You know, what does that have to do with anything? You know, and I think that's where a lot of people, and that's why I said that I've been to many churches, but I ain't met too many Christians. You know what I'm saying? I've met a lot of leaders, but I ain't met no followers.
Amen.
Because when you follow the word, then clearly God stands for love.
Amen. He stands for love. Okay. Yes. So with Ghetto Geeks, you end up having to just part ways with it because of the relationship. So in that season, did you fall into like a depression or like, man, another failed company and what I need to do to get back on track? Like, what was your ambition to keep going? Like, what was your goal? Like,
but see, I don't operate like that. Okay. You know what I'm saying? I don't operate like that. Okay. You know, I operate in the space of, I'm finna do something. I'm not telling myself that. I'm just doing it. So I'm not just saying, I'm gonna do. You know, it's not like that. It's just something inside of me that just be like, shoot, you can do something else. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You're multi-talented. You know, but it wasn't always like that. See, here's what I want to say about people and about my childhood. Okay, so my mother passed recently. You know, and we didn't have the best relationship. But what I understand about her, she did the best that she could do. You know what I'm saying? With all of us, because I got one sister and 4 brothers, you know. And, you know, because, you know, our relationship, you know, I had to get it. I had to get it myself. You know what I'm saying? Because of our relationship. And don't get it wrong. She, you know, I have a lot of compassion for my mother. You know, but she can only do what she could do. Now, when I was unhealed, you know, I blamed. You know what I'm saying? But once I began to heal, you know, because life doesn't change. What changes when you start healing, your perception of life change, which makes life change.
Amen.
You see? So, you know, I started looking at things differently. But the gift that she gave me is the gift she never gave me. See, the gift that she gave me is a gift I never received. And so I had to look within to get that gift. She is the reason that I don't give up. See, when I was going to school, you know, back then it was like an all-white school. So one time it was a bus driver, and I was the only black kid that rode the bus. So it was a bus driver. His name was Mr. Swindell. So what he would do is he would pass up the bus stop, because I was the only kid that, you know, and he would, you know, just pass it up a little bit to make me run to the bus. And then all of the white kids would have their arms out the window talking about run in, you know, and I would walk. So when I got on the bus, he told me, you going to the office, you know, because, you know, you holding up the bus route. So, you know, my mama was hardcore. She wasn't, you know, so I didn't feel like she was going to protect me. She's probably going to think it was my fault. So, you know what I did? She took me to the principal's office. I told him people he was racist. I'm in the 7th grade. You know what I did? In protest, then I didn't know it was protest, but in protest, I walked to Johnston High School. I started walking to school, and that was, to qualify for the bus back then, it had to be 2.5 miles. So I would in 7th grade, I would walk 2.5 miles to school and 2.5 miles back.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that's where that drive came from.
Right.
Wow.
Because I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I had the protection, you know, and that could be just my feelings, but I just didn't feel that way. And so I just said, you know, forget it.
But the thing is this, your feelings is valid, right?
Right.
It's valid. And so can't nobody tell you how you feel when you're the person that experienced it, right?
Right.
Because, yeah, I walked to school that many miles because I lived on East Roberts in Fort Worth, and I went to Morningside Middle School. That's when I had to walk to school. And I'm talking about a long field. And it was no buses at all. You had to walk to school. Rain, sleet, snow, right? But see, it's not because we was forced to. That's just what it was, right? But in your case, you was forced to walk because of being mistreated.
Well, I could have stayed on the bus, but I could have just kept on riding the bus, but I just in my little young mind, I was like, I don't need to ride no bus.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't finna put up with that.
Right. But that's good. Early you understood what it mean to stand up for yourself. Right.
You know, even if it was through my actions, and you know, I didn't go tell a man I wasn't gonna ride the bus. I just didn't. Okay.
So as you navigate through middle school and high school, what did life start to look like for you?
Confusion. A lot of confusion. You see, I was a person who never really fit in. Okay. So to make myself fit in, I would shrink myself to whatever situation needed to be. You know, but one thing about shrinking yourself to whatever situation that need to be is you lose a piece of yourself.
Yes, you do.
You know, you lose a piece of yourself. So by the time I got out of high school, I was on drugs. You know, I was on drugs by the time I got out of high school. So I sobered up at 21 years old. So the day I was supposed to be celebrating taking a drink, I was sober up. I already had enough drinks and drugs to last me a lifetime. So I sobered up. I went to treatment center 524 of 89 at Harris County Psychiatric Center. You know, back then, it was a 90-day treatment program. And so the first 2 floors was mental health, and then the 3rd floor was the drug unit. Okay. Yeah, so by the time that I was getting higher than James Brown's backup singles. I was getting it in. My eyes looked like stop signs. I was on crack and alcohol. I was getting it in, you know. So in high school and up into your early 20s, you was already exposed to crack cocaine? Probably about 18. 19. Because we were already experimenting, But you did finish high school, right? No, I dropped out. Oh, you did? Okay. I dropped out and I went and got my GED. You did? Okay, yeah. I went and got my GED. I think before I just became a full-fledged I had enough energy in me to finish them GED classes. And then after that, I was on drugs. I was just lost. I was just really, really lost. Because I was confused. And, back then we didn't have like YouTube and stuff like that where you can go dig and find, you just had to get it how you want, how you live.
Figure it out, right?
You had to figure it out.
And so during this time, did you become a loner?
I've always been a loner.
Okay,
I've always been a loner. That's why my opinion. That's why I'm so talented. Like, I know how to write a lot because I used to write a lot, and I love music. And so and my father he was in college on a music scholarship.
Okay.
He played the trumpet. Okay. So I grew up around music and creativity. He owned a tavern. So so I've always been around that.
Okay. So that's bloodline.
Yeah.
Musical inclined is bloodline.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because we always think that everything bad comes from our bloodline, but some of the good things. Because my daddy was an entrepreneur, and his daddy was an entrepreneur. And his daddy made Kool-Aid. He made Kool-Aid. Oh, wow. I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know this at the time when I started my company. Well, mine was Marmalade, but I didn't know at the time. And so 2 years after I started, he had told myself and my brother. He said that my daddy used to sell Kool-Aid, and people used to come from miles and miles and miles around to buy his Kool-Aid.
Oh, wow.
And I never knew that. And so my brother told me, granddaddy and I never met him either because he passed away, early when I was a young girl and we was living in St. Louis. And so I never met him. And so my brother told me that my grandfather was talking to us through the grave because his recipe, he died with his recipe. So because he had it up here, he had it in his head, and his sisters got mad at him because they wouldn't give him the recipe. And so when he died, I asked my father, well, when he died, I said, what happened to the recipe? He said it died along with him. So nobody ever knew what he had, the recipe.
Wow.
And then I pop up with this, that's that drink, and I never knew.
Wow. One thing about it, we always have a guardian angel, right? And some people don't believe in it, but I definitely do. And I didn't know about my family bloodline, especially my daddy's side, until I was in mentorship and we had to do a bloodline mapping. And when I called my dad, he was telling me about how my great-grandfather and the great-grandmama and all them before us had land, cattle, like all these things, and everybody was entrepreneurs. And so on my daddy's side, it's a very strong entrepreneur spirit, and they end up being like principals. They very educated Black people, right? And so I'm grateful that I did get to meet them when I did, because everybody kept saying, how you turn out to be a certain way? Because it's in the blood. It's no entrepreneurs on my mama's side, but it's a bunch of them on my daddy's side. So yeah, that's definitely possible. And I didn't understand it either, Demo, until I was like, whoa, it's in the blood, good and bad.
And all of us are musical. Like all of my brothers, we all musical. We love music, jazz. And he was a trumpet player, and I like jazz music.
Yeah.
And all my family like that. We like jazz.
Okay, so 21, you go into the rehab, and then you did that for 90 days. So after 90 days, did you stay sober or did you relapse?
Oh, no. See, what they have to understand about relapse is not part of the program.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That, it's 3 reasons why you get high.
Okay. What's the 3 reasons?
Because you want to, and because you want to. That's it. It ain't no other reason. Seriously, it's not. You know what I'm saying? So,
But one would blame it on trauma, their parents, and all these things to why they do what they do. Because I told you, even my sister, I said, Shell, why do you get high? And she said that's the only time she feel love. Okay.
Well, I can't speak for her, but I know one thing, that there's some wolves out there, and what I realized is that I was a sheep. You know what I'm saying? And, now don't get it twisted. I was raised around wolves. And when I say wolves, is that we was all in survival mode, whether emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially. So I got wolf tendencies.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I was the only person in the program that didn't have a felony. Everybody else had felony. I'm the only one that didn't. Because when it came time to steal and rob and stick up stores, I used to tell them, then this is the wolf tendency in me. I say, well, I'ma hold the door open. You know, so when I see you at the cash register, I'ma hold the door open, and then I'ma walk in like a customer just to check out everything, and then you run out, you know, because they had the little click. So I you know, so that's how, you know, so they didn't know that I was part of the robbery, but I convinced them to do, you know, I mean, not they convinced them because they was already gonna do it, but I was too scared to do it, but I didn't want them to know because I wanted to get high too, and if I wasn't gonna get high, if I wasn't gonna do, you know, help them do it, then so I had to come up with a plan so that I could, you know, be as less active in the robbery. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I used to do. Me and this guy, you know, this Hispanic guy, his name was Larry. You know, we was a duo, but he would do the robbing, and I would just kind of hold the door open because, you know, he had the little latch where the little lever, and so and that's what we did. And he wound up going to jail, and I wound up going to treatment.
So after treatment, what did life start to look like? Because you say you didn't relapse.
I went to a halfway house.
Okay.
Called Roger Street. I stayed there, and you know, I started going to, and because it's, you know, you know, I'm old school, so you know, it's an anonymity. You know, I try to keep the anonymity, but it was a black. It was I can tell you, it was a black CA. The first Black Cocaine Anonymous was group. You know, because they do groups, was called Free at Last, and so I went there every day, all day. You know, because they said in order to you know, you have to change people, places, and things. So, you know, if I want to be sober, then I hang around sober people.
That's good.
Right. You know what I'm saying? If I want to be an entrepreneur, then I hang around entrepreneur people. You know, so, you know, and I, you know, until I, you know, I just, you know, and I just didn't have desire. But, you know, so when I checked myself into the rehab, let's back up a minute. When I checked myself into rehab, this is how I got there. I stood outside a donut shop on Gessner and Beechnut. Why are you laughing already?
I know you, man.
You know, and I but back then they called it panhandle. And I stood outside the donut shop, and I told the lady, I told the man, hey, I'm trying to go to the rehab. You know what I'm saying? And can I borrow $1? Because that was all it took to get on the bus, like 75 cents, and to get on the bus. And I caught the bus to the rehab. I checked myself in.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? And so what I did so that I wouldn't come back was you know, everybody, I've always been like charismatic. People always like me, you know. So I went around on Beechnut. It was a place called the Trails and the Roads on Beechnut and Corporate across the street. So I went around and got all the drug dealers dope, you know, because they, you know, at that time, you know, they put it in your hand, you sell it, they go to the club, they young, and then when they come back, you give them their money, they give you whatever. So what I did was I went and got everybody drugs. I said, yeah, I'm gonna sell it to you, then I'll be back. Just come in the morning. And I smoked, boy, I smoked like a broke stove. I was smoking. You know what I'm saying? Boy, I had me a good old time. And then I got on the bus and I went down to the. But do you know why I did that? So I couldn't come back, because they was gonna kill me if they found me. So I couldn't come back. I made it. I said I'm gonna smoke it just so I couldn't come back.
Man, hold on. Wait a minute. In fast, the fasting group I'm in, the lady said, I don't care about burning bridges because I don't want to cross them again no way.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And that's what I did, because I didn't want to come back. And I know that I would be forced to keep, I know I couldn't come back. They was gonna knock my head off my shoulder. I couldn't come back.
Oh, wow.
You know.
Wow.
So so I went to the first time I went to ACPC the first day, and they didn't have a bed. So I had to sneak back, you know, into the neighborhood. You know, it was late. I creeped back in there just to give me a nice rest. Then I went back. Okay. Again, I did the same thing. Stood at the donut shop and asked somebody, you know, and I got on the bus, smelling like 3 rodeo bulls, but you know, the whole bus was on one side. I had the whole side to myself. I was stinking. You know what I'm saying? I smelled like 3 rodeo bulls. So then I got to and they said, man, we don't have no more beds. I said, okay, I'm gonna come back. And so I don't know if you know about McGregor Park, but ACPC is on this side and the bus stop was on this side. And so it was a big old bayou across, and I looked up and I seen this lady doing like this, ma'am.
She telling you to come back.
She said, we got a bed.
Amen.
And I got in the treatment center, and I said, shit, I ain't coming. I said, sure, I'm through with that. Because back then I just realized that I'm not cut out for that life. You know, my heart too big. I used to be giving people crack, and you know, I feel sorry for them, and you know, and then they'll smoke they crack right in front. But I just, you know, that wasn't a life for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, when you have a certain heart posture, you only can do wrong for so long, and the convictions will begin to sit in, right? And that's what happened in my own life. The things that I've done or whatever, the convictions got so heavy, I couldn't do it anyway. It got to the point where I couldn't even do it.
Right.
So you go through the program. After 90 days, you release. So once you release, like what's running through your head? Like you like, I'm good to go back, or I still need some more time?
No, I was ready, because at this time, they had incorporated the sober dances, and and it was a community, and so in that community, and I don't know how it is back then, and I wish I could say these ladies' name, but it was 3 ladies, and one in particular, but it's an anonymous program, and I do want to respect them because I don't know where they are in their lives, but it was these, and they would pick you up and take you to the meeting.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it was a community back then.
Is it called a sponsor?
Yeah, it was I had a sponsor, but it was just a community, and so, hey, if you needed a ride, just let them know, you know what I'm saying? And they'll get you a ride if you was hungry, and we went out to, breakfast, and, if you didn't have no money, these were all black people. When we went out to, breakfast, you didn't have no money, somebody paid, and we was just, you sleep at somebody's house, you go to the AA, the CA or AA conventions. So it was a community. So at this point, I feel really, really safe.
That's good.
Right.
And community is important.
Right.
Community is very important. And not only in that space, just in life, period. Right. And like you say, if you want to be something, you got to start surrounding yourself with what it is that you want to be.
Right.
Right. Because we get shined down on because we decide to elevate up and leave some people behind. And it's okay to leave some people behind. And some people you can go back and get, right? But that's only if they want to be helped, right? And so that's good. Because I'm pretty sure your sponsors, I'm pretty sure some of them probably was ex-addicts as well.
Everybody was them.
Okay.
Everybody was ex-addict, and they had ex-addict behavior.
Exactly. That's why I tell people you can't teach somebody something that you ain't went through.
Right.
And it's a lot of people that's out here doing that.
Right.
Life coaching and all these things, and baby, they ain't even living what they saying.
Correct.
Correct. And so you go through that. So when did you start navigating in a workspace in the entrepreneur space?
That's like always been in me. Even when we was, before the drugs, I know my brother, one of my brothers, he had a lick. We was always hitting licks, especially in the 80s. They didn't have the technology. And so he had a homeboy that worked at like a warehouse, and we was getting all of these nice shirts. And so that back then you can get it delivered, to another address and just go pick it up, but it was inside. And so we had a whole bunch of shirts, and my brother, he not a salesperson. So, of course he gonna take me, and so he would try to, we was all down here, we was selling, and so every time somebody asked him, well, give me that blue and red, he get mad, and, man, what you want, so, I said, you can't sell nothing. So he took me with him, and I sold them shirts all day long. And then when I got through selling the shirts, he gonna talk about, here go $20.
Oh,
we was out there all day. We was out there all day. You know what I'm saying? So, I was like, that's cold. But, back then, so I've always had the spirit, that spirit in me. I just didn't know how to cultivate that spirit, and I'm just now recently learning how to actually use my gift, that, I have to align myself with the gift. I got the gift, but I just didn't have the alignment with God. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have alignment with the Creator, so, it's hard to navigate a gift, when you don't have any alignment and you don't have any spiritual base, and you don't know the Creator, it's just kind of hard to navigate the gift.
So you always known God and believed in God, right? So when did you fully start like surrendering yourself to the Lord?
Okay, so in 2021, that's when everything began to fall.
Okay.
Because, one thing about having an entrepreneur and all of that, and always being able to, find a way when there is no way, and all of that stuff, is that you kind of misinterpret your blessings, and so I've misinterpreted my blessings. See, I thought it was me, but it was never me. That was God, so when people say, I finessed them, no, that was God's grace, my boy. You know what I'm saying? And that's my own experience, because I thought, I'm charismatic. People like me. I can get it. You know what I'm saying? So you start to take the gift for granted. You know what I'm saying? And so, because you really believe it's you doing it. And when you start healing, and so I started in 2021, I was broken. I was the inner child. I mean, the inner child was like, I'm sick. I'm tired. And you have not, you have not nurtured me into the woman. And we still running around here. I don't, and I was much way bigger than this. I lost like 100 pounds in like 10 months, like 9.5. And so anyway, I had fed it with food because I come from addiction. It's easy for me to get addicted to almost anything. And so it got to 2021. I think it was close to the pandemic. During the pandemic or somewhere around in there, it was just so much going on in my life. I took my stuff off the shelf because not anything, like I said, nothing to do with the contract or anything like that. It was all me, and I have to understand that, and it's all me, and everything that was around me as I put myself in that situation. When you're making choices out of trauma and brokenness, you don't expect for anything good to come from it, and it doesn't matter how much money that you have. My experience is it doesn't matter how much money you have when you're broken and you traumatized and you have not healed, you're only going to feed your trauma. A lot of people say, I used to say, well, they used me. They ain't used me. We used each other. You know what I'm saying? I gave you this and you gave me validation. Yeah. You made me feel like I was somebody for that moment. But one thing about, givers is that they're gonna always attract takers. And takers will always attract givers. Because that comes down to the spiritual and the spirit that's within you, y'all start attracting each other, and so I went on to, I started breaking down. And so what I did was I got on YouTube and I wanted to know how did I get here? Other than my first and last name, I don't even know who I am. I don't know who I am. That's how broken I was. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't even look myself in the mirror. I would, after everybody left, after everything was said and done, I hated myself so much that I wouldn't even look in the mirror. I hated myself so much that I was in the house by myself, and I would put on, you go to the get a shirt out the dryer. I would fully clothe myself. I didn't know it, but when I started breaking it down and I started doing a journal and I started looking at dysfunctional family dynamics and all of this stuff like that, and it started blowing my mind. Because before then, as long as I had the money, I thought I was good.
Say that again. Boy, that money will blind us.
Well,
I lived it. I know it.
Well, the devil gonna always think. The devil make you think you winning when you're losing. The devil will make you, and the devil will make you think you winning when you're losing. And one of the best tools is money. Because as long as you got money, you don't hear nothing. That you got money on your ear, you can't tell me nothing.
That's the first thing that leaves.
You drunk. You ain't got it like me. I've been hustling for 2 years. You've been out here for 40. You know what I'm saying? That's what's all going through your mind. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants something, and you surround yourself with people. You surround yourself with all the wrong people, and you can't blame nobody but yourself. And I think that's part of recovery. I think that a lot of people, including myself, I couldn't recover because I couldn't recover from all that from emotional abuse, because I didn't have the ability to be honest with myself.
That's good.
So I could blame Fran. I could blame my mama. I could blame my daddy. I can blame everybody. But when you start healing, you realize, here we all victims. Who ain't a victim? But, we hide. I was hiding, not trying to refrain from speaking for everybody else, but I tried to hide behind the dysfunction so that I wouldn't be held accountable. If it's your fault, because you was yelling and screaming, they just as much a victim They just as much of it is. They just as much as a victim as I am.
Mm-hmm.
So we all victims. Ain't nobody winning out here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you truly begin to heal, you start to understand. You know, you start to have that compassion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had an aunt when my mother passed away, and I called her. She stayed in St. Louis. Her name, I love you. When we was kids, you know, it come from a lot of, you know, and this ain't no secret or nothing. You know, my father used to domestic violence. Mm-hmm. All right, but we used to go over to my aunt's house. Her name was Aunt Lovey. She still stay in St. Louis. See? And I told her one day at my mother's funeral, I remember her. I don't have too many fond childhood memories, but I remember her because she was one of the only adults, not the only adult, but one of the only adults that didn't treat us like what we were living in. Mm. She, you know, I loved going to her house. And there's other people too, but, you know, my Aunt Lovey, she had a green Volkswagen, and she used to take me and my little brothers to DQ, you know, and to the bowling alley. She was on the bowling team. She told me, she said, you know, she asked me, was I going to my mother's funeral? And I said, I don't know, because at this time I'm not where I am today. And and then she told me something, and it released everything. She told me a story that I'll keep it between us because it's not my story to tell. Not, you know, but anyway, my mother was not a talker, and she never talked about how she grew up or anything like that. And, you know, and when she told me that story, and it was just a short story, just a little piece, it was enough for me to, man, I felt I had so much compassion for my mama. You know, like, wow, she'd been surviving all her life. And now I got a chance that she didn't have. I get a chance to recover, you know, and it changed everything. It changed our whole relationships. And you're talking about years of, you know, just a lot of, you know, we had a turbulent relationship. You know, I was who I was, you know, and so, and it changed my whole life just that fast. All of these years of tormenting myself. And, you know, that's why I encourage people, talk to your children.
Yes, definitely. And I don't know if you recall when I used to start the episode, when I first started, I used to say, telling the truth, even when it hurts, will set you free.
Right.
Right.
So what I realized is that hurt people, and some people are so hurt, they don't know they hurt people. You know, and that changed everything about my life. Just that little simple, just that little bit of information, you know, and
so before your mom passed away, did y'all end on speaking terms?
Yeah.
Y'all did? Okay,
yeah.
Good.
We ended on speaking a week before she passed away. I had graduated, you know, from ACC, and I let her know because before that we hadn't talked to each other in like 4 or 5 years. And so we talked, and she was in really good spirit. And so, yeah. So, and here's the thing, you know, if I want to be gut level honest, I just wanted her love. I've been chasing her approval my whole life. I've been chasing her love in people, places, and things. You know, and if you want to just be completely honest, but she gave me what she had. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so when you really start healing from your trauma, you know, life starts to look different from you. And what you realize is that all of us victims, you know, some of us will have an opportunity to recover, you know, for me. So, you know, I'm happy that everything in my life that I thought was bad, it wasn't bad, it was experience. And the experience is going to make you better or better. Me not being in the store and having to be back on the corner, I was ashamed at first. I was ashamed, and I thought to myself, that's the little girl in me. You ain't good enough, see? You were gonna ruin it. We knew it. But then I have to tell her, you know, calm down. I got this. You know, because what I know is that opportunity, I have another opportunity. They didn't say that I'd never get in the store again. You know, what they said is, you know, and I'm saying this is what I'm saying to myself, was, you know, it's like a math problem. You didn't get it right. Go back to your roots. You're going to have another opportunity, but now that was the unhealed version of you in the store. Now you're going to have an opportunity to have the healed version in the store, because I'm getting back in it. There's no doubt, and sometimes you got to come back to where it all started from, So I'm on the corner, but I'm on the corner in life because now the corner, you get all 4 views. So I have all 4, I have a 4-dimensional view of life. The bottom line is that for me, I don't care how good your product is. I don't care what you have. You're only going to be, the product is only as good as the owner.
That's true. That's true. And one thing about God, he will take us through that same cycle over and over until we finally get it right. And I believe for you in this season, it's already right because you did the work. You sat in silence, you sat in loneliness, and you faced yourself. And that's the best thing you could have done for yourself. And I'm telling you this because I'm doing it and I'm living it now, right? And so even for myself, a transparent moment, I held on to a business that was done for 3 straight years just to say, I still have it. Right? And like you say, shame set in. I started living up to this name, Big Frano, eat the plate, eat what I used to say, eat the food, break the plate, whatever I used to say, all that stuff, right? But one thing about it, that capping, you got to pay for it,
right?
One way or another. And so 3 years I suffered, right? And I ain't have to, because that company was long gone,
Right. And so here's what I found out about even when I was rapping, and I used to send CDs. Back then with CDs, I used to send stuff. What I learned about people, is that I learned that when you stop doing, following your dreams, when you following your dreams, people will frown. But when you stop following your dreams, people will smile. You know how many people when I stopped rapping, oh, no, you was good. Man, you should have, man.
But
I can't believe it.
Support you.
I can't believe it. But nobody supported me. But when I was giving them CDs, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. So that's what I learned about life. When you following your dreams, people will frown. But when you stop following your dreams, people gonna smile. I learned that.
And people will wonder like, okay, well, what Demo got going on? Because you like you say, you back on the corner, but you at peace now.
Right.
Well,
in order to, you have to have some humility. You have to be that vulnerable. It's only a character builder. See, success is not as important as who you become on the way to success. So if this was what I gotta do, this is what I gotta do. It's not, to me, it's not back on the corner. To me, it's like, okay, God say, I'm finna give you this opportunity again.
Right.
Okay, but we got to start from the start. And now we're gonna see how you, we gonna see what's going on with you, but
And I just want to say this. So in comparison to the summers that you have been out here, can you say this has been your best summer?
Yeah, it's been my best summer because it's been my best me. Yeah, because like I say, when you start looking at life differently, then you see life differently. I don't look at anything that has happened to me as punishment. I look at everything as, this is what you need to do, and this is the lessons that you need to go through in order to get where you're going. And if you, keep going through the same lesson, it's because that's what they call a never-ending story. You know how you call your friend and you like, the same thing happening, girl, and it's like, man, it's been 5 years because we keep repeating the cycle. So the never-ending story, the story ends when you stop and you turn the page, But as long as you're repeating the same behavior, it's gonna be the same story.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why they call it the never-ending story.
And I definitely had some never-ending stories,
right?
Especially when it came to friendships and relationships.
Right.
Yeah, I did. Yes. So what does life look like for Demo now?
Life looks like I'm happy to be here. Versus I'm glad everything that happened to me, and we couldn't touch on everything, but everything that happened to me, I'm glad it happened. Because those were some lessons. Those were some blessings. I don't fault nobody. For anything that has happened. Whether it was I just don't fault anybody. All of that stuff you have to let go. Because when you realize that we all just trying to find our way, it's not an excuse. It's a reason. And we all gonna cross paths in some time of our life, and they're gonna teach you. Some gonna teach you lessons. Some gonna bless you so you can get the lesson. And because it's a spiritual journey. This is all just one big spiritual journey. And so I look at everything, as what can I learn from it? What's the experience that I'm walking away with? So life looks good, for me.
Yeah. And so on the life looks good for you, that even allowed you to, like you say, drop 100 pounds.
Yes.
Something that you tried to do for many years, right?
Right.
But when you fully surrendered and fully just completely changed your thought process, the weight was able to come off. Explain to the audience what does that look like. So
here's what happened. I've been overweight, and overeating and soothing myself with food. I've been on a million diets. I went to Food Addicts Anonymous. I went to Overeaters Anonymous. I done had the books. I done had the sponsors. I done had everything. And I would do good for a little while and then it stopped again. So what I realized is that food was never just really the problem. The problem was, and then people say, you big enough, you'll qualify. You'll qualify for weight loss, but I never wanted weight loss. I never wanted the easy way out of life. So I never wanted the weight loss surgery, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just didn't want it because what I realized is that it was something that had to change on the inside. The low self-esteem, self-sabotage, self-doubt, low confidence, all of that stuff. But my nervous system was shot. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know anything, about the nervous system at the time, but it had to end within. So I had to change the inside. Because I could lose the weight and become a very horrible person because success works both ways. I've known people that lose weight and you can't say nothing to them.
They become real arrogant.
They become real arrogant because you got to understand they've been called fat all their life. They've been called unattractive all their life. And when you and I'll reiterate this and I say this all the time: when you unhealed and you start gaining that success or getting those things that your heart desires, you have to be very careful because you're gonna become instead of the victim, you become the victimizer. So I didn't, but I knew it was something that needed to heal on the inside because I just didn't feel good on the inside. And I was too scared to just do it like that because again, this is a person who has made herself invisible her whole life. Whether it was being in an abusive relationship, whether it was, and I'm not talking about just, relationship, talking about friendships, people devaluing you. I have been, and so for me to just be, come out and just be nice looking, without no work, without no healing, without no relationship with God, I was going to be a monster. And sometimes, you know what they say, sometimes you can feed a monkey till it become a gorilla. I'm telling you, you can.
Feed a monkey until it become a gorilla. Yeah.
Just to find out they're a monkey. And so I wanted to do it from the inside. So I did a 60-day water fast. I fast for 60 days, and that was really scary because I didn't have any more food to soothe me. So food was that I didn't see, that's why I could never lose weight because I was using food to soothe me, but I didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't lose weight. So when I took I was so tired. I was, my eyes was red, my ankles were swollen, and I was just the body was just, it couldn't go no longer. So I went on a 60-day water fast, and I didn't have any food to soothe that little girl in me. Do you know? One of the things in my childhood is that when my father would come home, he would be on, hitting, beat my mom and stuff like that. So as a little girl, I was always scared. So I would open up a window and in St. Louis. And I say, if he ever come, I'm going to open up that window and I'm going to run to my aunt's house. I had an Aunt Lavana who stayed, not that far. I was going to run, because, and so do you know, when I went on that water fast, that little girl was so pressed. I was so scared. I was in my own house with all the windows unlocked, because this is what I suppressed. The little girl, she was very, 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 very present. And I ain't been feeding her candy and all the stuff that she liked to be soothed. So I'm just in there, I'm just like tripping. I was talking like this, like a little child. I went into almost a child mind state. I only talked to when I was water fasting, I only talked to my cousin and one of my best friend. They like two sisters to me, but my cousin from Cali and my friend, D. I would just talk to them, and I wouldn't even talk to them that much because I just went into a whole child state. I was so scared. Everything scared me. Paying the bills scared me. I was just scared. And what I realized, and so to calm the little girl down was, whatever I didn't feel like I got as a child, to calm the little girl down, I started talking to her. And I said, look, it's all right. I would rub my hand and I would do like this and I would say, it's all right. It's okay. I love you, and I apologize to her. I say I didn't take care of you. I know I didn't take care of you, but you know what? I'm gonna grow up, and I'm gonna get better, and I'm gonna take care of you. It's okay. It's okay. And I would start calming my own self down. I would calm the little girl inside of me, and that's how I start soothing myself. And and that's how I communicate with her to this very day. I talk to her.
I need to try that because I've been trying to lose the same 15 pounds for, Lord, I don't know. I'll lose the weight, then I gain it right back. And when I gain it back, it's like I'll gain an extra 1 pound or 2. No, seriously. So I really need to tap into that inner child. I be feeling like I do, but I really need to go deep. Because the longest I ever did, a dry fast is 3 days, a water fast maybe 7, right? And so this is something that I really need to consider, because I do have some areas that I still need to work on, and thank you for sharing that, because to tap into that little girl, it do get scary. It gets very scary.
Well, you done feel that, for me, we filled it up with alcohol, relationships, everybody gossip, and everybody else's business, and the little girl inside to tell us more. Now, who pregnant today? You know what I'm saying? And you don't even realize that all you're doing is just soothing that little girl. That's because the little girl is very immature. That's why a lot of times we be adults acting very immature. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just that inner child that we refuse to acknowledge and grow her up and say, hey, but she told me, I'm tired of wearing pigtails. I'm sick of this. If you ain't, what are you doing with us? So what I did was, I apologized to her. I apologized to myself. And when I started talking to myself and nurturing myself, it's like I say, when I first started the water fast, I know I even go to the doctor. I already know I was in bad shape, and I started telling my heart, oh, you fine. Oh, we healing over here. You go, girl. And I would have to talk to myself as if I was the mother of myself, and when I stopped, my relationship got better with me. And those mirrors that I used to pass up, those are the mirrors that I started looking in, that when I needed that shirt, I didn't have to put on the shirt. That's how unsafe I felt with my own self, and that's deep. When you feel unsafe with your own self, when your self-esteem is so low that you can't even look your own self in the mirror, you talk about self-hate. That's self-hate on steroids. When you're in a house by yourself and can't even stand and look at yourself. But it wasn't the physical part, it was the effects of not protecting myself. It was the that all of that church that, that I remember having, and I remember going to, and they said God was gonna do this, but I'm still unhealed, so God ain't did nothing for me. I've been nice to all of these people, and this how they treat me. But being a good person don't mean you gotta be nice. It just means you gotta be good. And being a good person is protecting yourself, because if you have a big heart and no discernment,
man,
then you may as well go out you may as well get on 16, get all your money and throw it out the window.
Yeah.
You may as well take all your time, and go by the drug house and, service the people, because it doesn't matter how big your heart is if you don't have discernment, and if you have unhealed trauma, that's the devil's playground, unhealed trauma. You give him access to your soul. And when you give the devil access through your soul, through your trauma, he gonna have a party on your soul, and he gonna invite everybody. Everybody coming, low self-esteem, self-sabotage, overeating, over-drinking, overindulging. Everybody coming, and they gonna party hard. They gonna party until the point that you'll never get back up. And then you know what they do? Party over. Let's go, y'all. So you have to heal that trauma.
Yeah. And that definitely has been the story of my life, because I've taken care of a lot of people. And baby, this phone don't even ring no more.
That's right.
It don't ring at all.
That's why we have to go through what we got to go through, because it ain't their fault. If you giving away free money, you giving away free money.
Right.
That's what it is. If I can call you only when I need something and you allow me, you can't blame them people. Yeah. You can't blame them people. And if you want to recover, what did you get out the deal? I know I got D-Mo, man, you solid. You know what I'm saying? That one thing about that D-Mo boy, she good. Yeah. I got that validation.
Yeah,
so they didn't use me, we used each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You just seen what they got from me. You ain't see what I got from them. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that D-Mo, she cool. That one thing about it, she solid. So, at the end of the day, who you mad at? Yeah. So I'm not saying you're mad at, I'm just saying, who you mad at? Yeah. Who you mad at?
Honestly, D-Mo, I'm not mad at anybody.
Right.
Because once I sat with myself, even when it came to the trucking company, I said, Fran, you failed you. Nobody didn't fail you, you failed you. Like you say, being nice. Being nice put me in a very bad spot, right? And so, yeah, I'm not mad at nobody. Right. I'm not. Even with my phone not ringing right now, I'm not mad with nobody. But just know, it's circulating back, boy.
That's right. Money's circulating.
But when it do, now I have the discernment, but now I also know how to check myself, right? Because I never want to get to the point to where I think I'm bigger than the program. And bigger than the program, I mean, I'm bigger than God. That's what I mean by that, right? I don't never want to get to that space, because these 3 years, now I know we met in a low space, right? Right? But imagine being in a low space where you still have access to whatever it is that you need, but that still don't even matter at that point.
Right.
And that's where my life has been at. Because this one thing about God, he didn't take it all away. He just left me with enough. Enough to just pay the bills, do my little miscellaneous. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Well, the thing about the experiences is God have so much more for you, but how he gonna bless you, how he gonna get to you when you got all the garbage in the road, and the garbage can is you. You know what I'm saying? Just saying.
The garbage can is me, right?
No,
that's true.
And you got to feel, how he gonna bless you? He trying to get to you. He telling you, he's showing you. He gave you the discernment. He gave you everything. And that was another thing. I always thought that I needed other people to make it. You know what I'm saying? And it was kind of like I'm a movie, but I like movies and documentaries. But one of my favorite is The Wizard of Oz. And the reason it's The Wizard of Oz because if you look at all the characters in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, the whole time she could get home. It was within. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And they did all of this to get to the Oz just to realize that it was just a man behind a machine. You know what I'm saying? They did all of this just to find out, the lion, he said he didn't have courage, but he showed courage the whole movie. You know what I'm saying? So it stands for more than that. But the thing of it is that, we have to go within. We have to tap into the God source within. He gave us, God gave us everything that we need to succeed. But it's all in here. But we looking on the outside. We got to get this grant. We got to get this capital. I'm gonna have to, try to twerk this little application. So we don't got to do none of that. We chasing bags, and we should be chasing purpose.
That's good. Yeah, cause your gift will make room for you.
Right.
And it definitely will. And so, speaking of your gift will make room for you, Talk about your products that you have lined on the table.
Oh, okay. So that's that drink. It's a Kool-Aid company, but we don't call it Kool-Aid. We call it Marmalade. Marmalade stands for Kool-Aid that your mama used to make. And that's what the marmalade, a guy at my job used to call it marmalade, and so I said I like that, so I kept it. So we got Kool-Aid, peaches, pineapples, pickles, adult life Kool-Aid, and I'm at, Fran shop on the side. You can come see me, 9600 Fondren, and I'm here on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11 to 7. You can reach me through all social media platforms. And, come enjoy the experience. And what we did was I made it where the prices are so affordable that people can come and they can treat their family without breaking the bank. Because, that's that drink. It's not about just being a product. It's not about a product. It's not all about a product. It's about, starting from the bottom and working their way to the top. And that's what that drink is. So it's a nostalgic product. So come out and enjoy and get your hair cut too while you're at it.
So this was a long time coming.
Right, a long time coming.
Yeah, and I'm glad you came on the show in such a time as this, right? Because even through the journey, we've been friends for 21 years, but I can honestly say over this last calendar year, you've really been helping me navigate this season.
Right.
Your wisdom that you pour into me has really helped me. You don't even know how much, right? When I leave here or when I hang up the phone with you, I got so much to process, right? But it's good, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing I know, you keep telling me, Fran, it won't end like this, And I take that with me because it won't end like this. And I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Fran, I just think that once we started tapping into the spiritual world and we get our minds and our hearts and we start aligning, with our higher selves and stop operating in our lower selves, because our lower self is our fear, mm-hmm. And I need to control everything around mm-hmm. us, and that's our lower selves. That's the part of us that, operates out of trauma and unhealed wounds and, mother wounds and all this other stuff. You'll be just fine. I'll be just fine, but sometimes, we do have to practice some humility, mm-hmm. And, for us to understand that you're never in control, mm-hmm. that God got you.
Yes. God got you. God got us. And so with that being said, I'm almost to 500 subscribers. So I need you guys to subscribe to the channel. Like, comment, share. If you would like to tell your transformational story, as you can see, it's not always about what people thought it was about. Oh, I don't want to come on there and trying to tell my business. It's not about telling your business. It's about navigating through seasons that God had allowed you to go through and to give somebody else tools so they can use it for their own life, right? And so you could come on Speak Unspoken and tell your story at story@speakunspokentv.com. I got my girl Demo, which is Daphne Moore. I will have all her tags in the description. You can pull up to Fondren Road, 9600 Fondren Road, Suite A1, right on the side of Bonafide, the haircut bar. So, yes, like she says, she's here every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. She has really good products. I sat out there yesterday and I seen how many people are return customers because they love the product so much. Mm-hmm. And it's not just us. It's other races too. So everybody liking it. So pull up. That's that drink. Support my girl. Like I said, we've been rocking since 21 years, man. And it's the only person that I know from where I started from at another shop believed in me. Right. And I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, right. Fran, you special. Yeah. You special.
Yeah.
So I remember when you was 21, you didn't even have a car. You would walk across that parking lot. Mm-hmm. You come a long way, and and you just don't look back. Because when don't look. I mean, don't look back. Mm-hmm. And, just keep looking up. You're gonna
keep
be all
looking
right.
up. Yeah. So until next time, Speak Unspoken.
See ya.